Welcome to the Confessions of a Group X Instructor podcast. For group exercise junkies and enthusiastic classgoers, we'll explore and uncover authentic, thought-provoking, and heartwarming industry education and inspiration from entertaining, badass fitness pros. And now your host, creator of Warrior Rhythm, Warrior Strength, Warrior Combat, Warrior Revolution, and Warrior Kids Group fitness brands, Ellen DeWord. Here we grow.
Oh my gosh, welcome everybody to Confessions of a Group Exercise Instructor Podcast again. I have Siri with me today. Hello, Siri.
Hi, Ellen. It's so great to be back.
I'm so happy to have you back. Siri and I were just talking before we hit record here for all of you that we just want to have like a conversation between friends. She and I get kind of lost in it, but include you, the listener. We have like a really beautiful friendship, and I'm so excited to talk about, Siri, your new book that's coming January 28th. I'm so excited to learn from you about making fitness fair and how to be a more inclusive fit pro. I know this is an area that honestly, I think it's an area where I need to sit up and take some notes. I really do.
You and me both, girlfriend. This is always learning, right? Always improving.
Always improve. Yes, forever a student. And before we go much further, just in case someone has never met you or is new to the show, maybe didn't listen to your first episode, I want to kind of give you a proper introduction. Siri is amazing. She's like the most spectacularly incredible human being, just absolutely beautiful inside and out. I like to say you work out in pearl earrings. That just says a lot about you.
I do. And I'm wearing pearl earrings now too.
Because I noticed right away when we opened the Zoom meeting, she's in this beautiful little pink outfit. Please follow her on Instagram. It's just, I love following you on social. You're very
likewise.
You're amazing on social media, how much you give and how much time you take to comment and thoughtfully comment on people and all the responses.
Thank you.
And you really take the time, you really do, to connect with people in a meaningful way through social media, which I think, I get in a hurry sometimes and I'm like, I'll give this a heart and I'll throw a heart here and I'll throw a hand clap emoji. And then I'm like, oh, look, Siri wrote each single person a little paragraph about how much she loves them. I'm like, I got to step it up.
Can I tell you something, Ellen? Actually, that's the reason why I'm posting less and less these days, because I wanted to keep up that level of engagement, but it was just too much to post every day and truly respond to everyone. Maybe someone smarter would have said, ditch the comments and keep posting every day. And that's the better way of doing it. But, it is about the people. It is about the relationships. I mean, that's been my most gratifying takeaway of even being on social media in the first place. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I notice it. Some other little things before we dive into the heart of this episode. I just finished teaching back-to-back classes. I just added teaching roots now. So that's our new format, which is for seniors, active agers, adaptive athletes, really anyone who could benefit from the support of a chair. And so I've added that. So my schedule is new today. So I was frenzied. And just in case you're watching this episode, can I just say that I look like a drowned rat with sweaty, frizzy hair. And I had to, I live in Oregon, so I came out in the rain. And here Siri looks like she just stepped out on it. You just look like you have professional makeup and you're ready for
you all should see Ellen, because she looks so glamorous right now, as she always does. She's just being very self-deprecating. No, you are.
Stop. So wait, one other thing. Have you been following my life very closely on social lately? Do you know that I have a new family member?
No, tell us all about it.
Okay, ready? Hold on. Okay. I know we really need a podcast for everybody, but first, Siri, hold on. You need to meet the new family member. Okay, ready? Look.
Oh my goodness, look at this little cutie, this canine friend.
And you even.
Oh.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, they actually look a little similar.
We do.
Yes, you do. You are definitely family members. It shows. What's our new friend's name?
His name is Fig.
Oh, what a
Like
great
a
name.
fig.
Hello, Fig.
Hello, Fig. So he's just gonna cuddle while we talk about
Wonderful.
all the things. Okay, let me stick him back down. Yeah, he's my new baby. Okay,
Yeah.
so less about me and more about you. You've been teaching for over 17 years,
Yes.
and I learned about you from our first episode together that you still like teach step aerobics along with a million other formats, but like
Every week.
your thing. Crazy. And you're going to teach it forever and ever and ever.
That's my plan. I'm trying to go to 75, so keep me honest.
I will. I am. We're still going to be like, yes, I am going to keep you honest. Okay, then, and I believe you. Like, you are going to be. I can't wait for the post where you're like, here I am, 75th birthday.
Now the question is anybody going to come to that class? I don't know. But as long as they let me teach it, I'll be there.
So, also, you're a master trainer for a human reformer, rack the
Yes.
bar. What else?
Cardio yoga.
Yoga. Yeah,
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that. And
It's so joyful. I've been teaching, like you said, almost coming up on 18 years students. I'm in university recreation, so I get everyone from the 18-year-old freshman to the 88-year-old alum, including varsity athletes, right? People who are coming to their first group fitness class ever, staff, faculty. It's such a beautiful, diverse community that we get. And my heart is always there. But I have to say, teaching instructors is also so gratifying. It's different. It's more challenging, right? Fellow instructors, they're more deeply engaged with things. They ask great questions. You get into these really thoughtful conversations about, well, how to cue, and well, we were taught to do something this way 20 years ago. Why are you now telling us to do it differently? I just love that in an intellectual exchange of both being a master trainer and certifying instructors in these formats, but then also presenting at conferences and getting to talk to instructors about different topics. So that's been a really joyful addition to my career over the last 5-6 years.
I so agree. It's so joyful. And incidentally, listeners, this is how Siri and I met is on the conference circuit, or maybe it was through being asked to be on a webinar, but in any event, it was related to
Yes.
being on the conference circuit. I too find it so gratifying and challenging. It's challenging to educate a veteran instructor who has, copious amounts of knowledge, might even know more about, me than something in a certain area. And then to have like a new instructor who's never taught before in the same room and trying to like, meet and work with them in the framework of that certification day it's just such a
I
challenge.
just had that exact situation 2 weeks ago, and I was just reflecting on that. It's kind of like teaching a class. Could be step aerobics, could be work, could be anything, where you've got the person who's been coming to class for years every week and is a total veteran and superstar, and then the first timer.
Right.
But that's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's part of our skill set. And it's something we're always honing, always learning.
Always honing, always growing, always learning. We were just also saying that before we hit record too. Always the student, always to grow. So, and then you study at Harvard. You studied there, and you want to talk about that at all? And then
Yeah, I did go there as a student, and that's where I started at Harvard Recreation 2 teaching. And then I kind of wound up in academia as my other careers. I've got all my fitness stuff going on between the teaching the classes and master training, instructor education conferences. But I also have a second career as an academic researcher of gender equality in organizations. I'm a behavioral scientist, and I try to understand what are the ways in which we can level the playing field at work, in workplaces of all kinds around the world, big, small, in the US, in Europe, in Asia, and how we can make work fair for everyone. I've been doing that work for just under a decade now, and it's endlessly interesting. We certainly live in times where these topics are very, much in the media and much talked about. The work has been going on behind the scenes for a long time, but it's getting more and more attention recently, which is also really interesting because I'm engaging in more of these conversations, just talking to friends, like out on the weekends, at fitness conferences even. And these are two worlds that don't often intersect for me, but when they do, like today, when we get to talk about fairness and inclusivity in the context of fitness and as instructors, I love it. I always love it.
It's interesting to me. I guess I didn't know, or I hadn't really thought about your timeline and the chronology of your life and this part of who you are, because you started this 10 years ago, because to me, it's really come into the forefront really in the last like 5 years, 4 years. So you were, I want to say, or maybe ask, were you just like very much ahead of the curve? Because it seemed like it wasn't a sensitivity these last few years, or was it always? And I just had my head buried in the sand.
I think it's one of those, it's interesting you say that about your head being buried in the sand, because I think the awareness and acknowledgement of gender equality and gender inequality has kind of ebbed and flowed in society over time. I mean, you wind the clock back 100 years and women were fighting for their right to vote and won. You wind back the clock 60 years and we're in the 1960s in the civil rights era when finally Black women got the right to vote. Then we think about the revolution around contraception and the pill being introduced. We think about 2012, which was my awakening, actually, personally, when Sheryl Sandberg's book Lean In got published, which again, in my lifetime, not in the broad arc of history, but in my lifetime was the first time I woke up to this conversation. And it also coincided with me having graduated college recently and working my first real full-time job and seeing a lot of the inequities firsthand that she talked about in the book. And I was like, wait a minute, it's not just me. This is a systemic issue. This is real. We're living in the year 2012 and this stuff still hasn't been fixed. And now, of course, we're living in the year 2024 and it still hasn't been fixed. So I think we all have these realizations in our lives at different times, just depending on what's going on.
Right. Okay, so we're going to talk, this is like a great like lead in, because I do want to talk about your book, Make Work Fair, that's coming, that I, by the way, have pre-ordered.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yes, of course. As soon as I heard about it, but I want you to kind of talk us about the book, and like, I have questions like, when did you decide to write it? And you wrote it with someone else, and how did you do it? And were you really like, I just saw your story or your reel where I don't know if you were on Fit Bodies trips, but it looked like writing the book was very.
I was on a lot of Fit Bodies trips while writing this book.
But there was like a lot of swimming pools and a lot of oceans in the background.
What can I say? It helps my creativity flow. A beautiful scenery, warm temperature.
Absolutely. Like when I go on Fit Bodies trips, I do my like workout, and then I literally want to like work. I love that space to like sit and work on my laptop and look at the pool or look at the ocean. I love it. But anyway,
Me too.
So I want to hear, I have so many questions about the book. Like, I think I mispronounced her name the last time I had you on. It's Iris, not Iris.
Iris Burnett is my wonderful colleague at Harvard Kennedy School, who is my co-author of the book. We've worked together on many, many projects, research and writing projects over the years.
Whose idea was it to write the book?
Kind of both of ours. Iris, this is going to be her second book. It's my first. Her first book is called What Works? Gender Equality by Design. And it came out in 2016, so almost a decade ago. And I think she had, in the back of her mind that she might write another book at some point. People had asked me if I was ever going to write a book. And at first I was saying, maybe if I do, it'll be, 15, 20 years from now. I just don't feel like I have anything additive to say yet. There's already a big conversation going on. A lot of books being published every day. I have nothing to add. And then about 2.5 years ago, it really got to the point where I started really feeling like, no, I actually do have something to add. I think the work that we're doing, the insights that we're discovering through research, the way we're understanding this landscape, actually would help move the conversation in a different and better direction. And that's where the idea to really write the book came about. So that was 2.5 years ago, and it's coming out in, as you said, January 28th, 2025. So it's been quite a journey already, and the journey will continue because, the engagement with the book doesn't end the day it comes out. That's when you start.
Knowing you, in
a way.
Ready. You're going to have to type all this. I can't wait. So did you then call her? You're like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. You want to do it together? And she was.
We started talking about it. I was like, Iris, I think we should write a book. I really think this is what it should look like. It wasn't a hard sell at all.
No, I bet not. Okay. So was it, were you overwhelmed by the idea of, so you felt like you had something additive, to use your word. Was that super daunting, like writing a book, like how many words you had to write per day and all of that stuff? I just remember when I decided I wanted to write a manual for my first course.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I ever gonna write a manual. And then like before I knew it, I had a 90 page manual, you know? So
Absolutely.
you had never written a book before. Were you like, what if I don't have what it takes? Or were you just like confident? I'm just curious.
I think, and there's parallels in fitness to this too, is when you're sufficiently prepared, it doesn't mean that you've done the exact thing before. I'd never written a book before,
Right.
but I'd written a lot of articles. I'd given this subject matter a lot of thought. I'd written a lot of research papers,
Yeah.
right? I talked to a lot of people. And so I did know what I wanted to say. So I was sufficiently prepared to be
Yeah.
able to take the leap to go to the next level.
Ah,
Right? It doesn't always mean that you're fully there yet and you've already done the next thing, but whether it's becoming a presenter or doing your first
yeah.
session at a conference or taking on a new format, you're just ready enough that even though it might feel a little daunting, it's counterbalanced by you just knowing that I can pull this off. I can do it. It's going to be a stretch, but I can do it.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you. It's incredible.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
all
Ellen. I'm so honored to share this with you and
Oh.
all the listeners. Honestly, I'm just so thrilled.
So speaking of, what we're gonna do, audience, is Siri is gonna talk to us a little bit about her book. I want her to, and then we're gonna kind of like take it into a fitness spin. She's gonna apply it directly to fitness professionals with 5 points that she has. So tell us about, so you decided to write it, you and Eris, and then so tell us about the book. Like, tell us what are the meat and potatoes of it?
Yeah, the book is called Make Work Fair, Data-Driven Design for Real Results. And it's intended to be a roadmap for anyone in any kind of workplace, including in fitness, including in corporate America, including healthcare. I mean, you name it. Whether you are the CEO or a mid-level manager or the most junior employee, there are things that you can do in your daily work to make your own work more fair and to make your workplace more fair, right? If you're the CEO, you have power to change big things in the organization. Overnight, you can institute a new policy about remote work, or you can make parental leave equal for women and men so that everyone gets to take the same amount of time off when they have a baby born. But even if you're the most junior person, maybe you are in charge of updating the company's website. Well, we'll talk about some of the things that you can do that relate to imagery and how we make imagery more representative and more fair. If you are interviewing contractors for your home, or maybe babysitters or nannies, right? There's ways that you can interview people in a fairer and smarter way. So we're kind of sharing those insights that are broadly applicable to all different kinds of workplaces. And as you mentioned, I did want to share 5 specific tips today for group fitness instructors, because that is also a workplace, but it's a unique kind of workplace, right? The context of teaching a class, that's different than running a meeting or doing performance evaluations or hiring people. So why don't we actually dive right in? And on this theme of marketing and imagery, my first insight and tip for you is to mind your imagery, because seeing is believing.
So like graphics, like the graphics.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Marketing.
do you have a website? Do you have a profile on social media where you post videos or photos or any other visual content that's not text? Do you operate in a studio or even a home studio or a gym where there's any kinds of pictures on the walls? Do you ever produce marketing content like brochures or posters or even business cards? You get my point, right? There's so many places where we use visual imagery. It could be photos, it could be videos, or it could be non-human logos, nature landscapes, flowers. These are all places for you to think about, what am I communicating in terms of who is this brand or this space or this program for, who can belong here and who doesn't. I want to share with you just one fascinating study. This actually comes from the University of Washington, so a university setting.
Okay.
They were trying to increase the participation of girls, of women in computer science. And the researchers went in and were trying to understand, why are there so few girls studying computer science? And one of the things they noticed in the classrooms is there were pictures up on the walls that were gaming characters, Star Wars characters, movie scenes of gaming movies. It was super masculine stereotyped imagery. right? It was creating this environment without any words being spoken that was like, you need to be a gamer or a Star Wars fan in order to belong. So the researchers ran a study where, without telling anyone, without alerting the students, they switched out the pictures in these classrooms for nature landscapes. So more neutral imagery that's not particularly associated with women or men in this case. And just that change alone, which again, no one told the students this was happening. It's kind of all in the background, semi-unconscious. It led to women reporting a greater feeling of belonging in the field of computer science. And it actually led more women to take more computer science classes beyond the intro course. So think about that. Just changing the pictures on the walls can have such a profound effect.
It gave me goosebumps.
Right?
Feeling. Yeah, it really, yeah.
It can be so much easier and lower cost and faster than we can even imagine. So if you're used to featuring stock images, my goodness, when I go look for stock images for my presentations, for my PowerPoints, I'm not going to lie, I probably have to spend an extra 15 or 30 minutes looking for pictures that represent different body types, that it's not all white, young, skinny people. Maybe we have someone in there with tattoos, wearing a hijab, an Afro hairdo. I mean, the path of least resistance is definitely the ripped six pack. But most of our students don't look like that. Will never look like that. Are not going to see themselves in those pictures.
Right.
So if we want those students to come to class, if we want them to feel like they belong in our classes, that they're actually welcomed and embraced, we have to start showing them in our imagery.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you do this, Ellen. I know you do this in Warrior, and actually you do such an incredible job with Warrior, is you feature your actual master trainers and your actual students.
I do.
In your pictures, in their videos, and it's so powerful.
Thank you. I feel like proud of myself because this is something I work really hard at. And you know why? Because I've been in an environment that didn't feel that way. And I didn't feel good enough, like skinny enough, fit enough, like, I felt the pressure to like lose weight, and I felt the pressure with this other company, and so it's been a monumental effort, and it's something I've been very purposeful about. I really try to not have a bunch of middle-aged white women representing my formats when, it's hard because there's, we live in America. There is a lot of like middle-aged white women, like myself included, in fitness right now. If we look at the conference circuit, you see, or you look in our classrooms, but I so desperately want to show the world something else. And I have gotten so much positive feedback. I just want a cornucopia of color, of age, of size, of body, of everything, and personality. And I have had so many people send me little DMs saying, thank you for the representation. And that's the word they've used. And it's not a word that was in my vocabulary. And I'm like, oh, I must be doing something really right. And then people have said like, because of your marketing materials, I felt like I could do this format, or because of what you posted in your videos, I felt like, or because I saw that you have master trainers that are plus size, I felt like I could apply to be a master trainer too. And it just makes my heart like so happy. But I'm interested.
It's so powerful. And when you are used to seeing yourself represented, you don't even notice it because you've always had the benefit, right, of moving through these spaces where you're like, oh yeah, I belong here. But the people who haven't had that benefit traditionally, who haven't seen themselves represented, they notice. And I'm guessing those are the people who are giving you the feedback, because for them to finally see themselves reflected and be like, wow, I'm seen. They actually want me here. My goodness, it is just so transformational.
I have a question for you because you brought that up about imagery as your first kind of point. I'm curious, is that sort of fundamentally, I just think we tend to be visual. Is that like, are these ranked in like priority or not?
That's a great question. They are actually at least my 5 points are not ranked, on priority. You know, there's that famous study that's many decades old that talks about how we perceive information when we're interacting with other humans. And actually, it's mostly body language, a little bit tone of voice.
Oh, yeah.
And just the tiniest sliver, the words that are actually used.
That's right.
So you could argue that what we see and what we kind of perceive through sight is actually more important than the words that we hear. But words are also really important. So that's actually tip number 2. Tip number 1 is mind your imagery. Tip number 2 is use inclusive, accessible language. Okay. As fitness instructors, cueing is our bread and butter. Yes, we demonstrate, but so much of what we communicate comes through the words that we use. So there's 2 dimensions in particular I want to highlight. The first is quite literally excluding some people when we say things like, hey guys, hey ladies, welcome step queens. These are all words that I've used myself before. I've even found myself in the situation where I'm saying, ladies, ladies, ladies. And then 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a gentleman lurking in the back row. My goodness, in a big 40-person pre-COVID class. So my tip to you—
Is that your confession for the day? No, I'm just
kidding. I have a different confession. Okay. This is confession number 1. My tip to you is make life easy for yourself. Yeah. Use non-gendered words that will make everyone feel like you're speaking to them no matter what. Have you noticed on planes and trains, they always say ladies and gentlemen? Well, there's young people, there's babies there's girls and boys, there's old people, there's people who don't identify as a lady or a gentleman. Mm-hmm. Couldn't we just say passengers? Yeah. Welcome passengers, welcome flyers, hello folks, friends, beautiful people, everyone, gorgeous souls. Feel free to get as creative with it as you wish. But there's 1.5 million ways to address a group of people that doesn't bring gender into it because we don't have to. In that context, it's not relevant what a person's sex or gender is. So that's my first tip on inclusive language. The second one, even more specific to fitness, is how can we cue in a way that makes everyone feel successful, right? I still hear, we've talked about positive cueing for a long time, but I still hear a lot of, if you can't do this, do this. If you don't want to jump, you can stay in a squat. If your wrists can't handle a plank today, come down onto your forearms. So we need to present options. We all know this. But now let's level up a step further. Let's make sure we're actually communicating the options in a way that people feel like they're allowed to use them and they can feel good about using them. I'll give you another example. I used to, for the longest time, ask about injuries, issues, and limitations at the start of my class. Please let me know if you have any injuries, issues, or limitations.
Yeah.
And then I took a session at an SCW Mania conference years ago with the wonderful Nathalie Lacombe from Canada. And she's explained how she's moved away from the language of injuries because it's so negative, right?
Okay.
It draws people attention.
I feel like this is a good tip for me. I feel like I might still do that sometimes.
Oh, trust me. I mean, I'm working on this still myself.
I do. I tend to do it in the context of bike fit. If I'm meeting someone new and I'm setting them up like one-on-one with their bike, I tend to ask like, do you have any neck, low back, any issue, any injuries, issues I should want to tell me about?
Right. Again, it's so natural because they are injuries, they are issues, but at the same time, that language, those words, frame them in a negative way.
Right.
So I transitioned to saying, please let me know if there's any part of your body that you're taking special care with today.
That's so good.
Any area of your body that you're healing, or anything else you want to share with me about how you're feeling today before we get started. And then I separately ask them to tell me if they're pregnant. And it just frames things in a much more positive way because people might not be injured. They might not feel like they have an issue, but their shoulder is cranky today. Or they woke up and, their neck is really sore. And just for today, they're still very healthy and strong. But just for today, they're not going to be turning their head back and forth a ton.
I love that you said healing. Anything you're healing or taking special care of. Wait, before you go, what about, how do you ask them if they're pregnant? How do you do that? How do you get that?
I actually just asked them, please, if you're, so here's what we do at my gym. We collect class cards.
Uh-huh.
So people bring this physical card to class, and as the instructor, my job is to take it from them before class starts. What I love, even though it's old school, it's low tech, what I love about it is it
Yeah.
gives me an excuse to walk up to each person individually and say hi, and it gives them a more private forum to tell me if there's anything going on. So before I start my little round, I tell them, please let me know if you're pregnant, if you need to leave
Oh,
early,
you say
or
that like globally.
I say that globally,
Beautiful.
and then I do my little rounds where I
Oh,
go, say
great.
hi one on one, grab their class cards. I get a chance to give them a smile, look them in the eye. And then if they have something to share, a lot of people are hesitant in the early stages of pregnancy, right? They might not have told their friends
Right.
and family.
Right.
So they're not going to raise their hand in front of 40 other people and be like, I'm pregnant.
Right.
So it gives them a slightly more private forum to share that with me. And then I usually ask, oh, how far along are you? Congratulations. How
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, great.
Okay,
And
wait.
here's what you might want to be mindful of in terms of some of the movements that are coming up.
What is this? What is a class card? What do you, I mean, obviously it's a physical like pen and paper thing. What is
It's
it?
literally a laminated piece of paper that has a number on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how we know we don't oversell a class. So, if the
Oh, so
capacity
you
of the
go
room is
collect them.
40, yeah.
Oh, I like
Like I said, old school, low tech, but it
that.
works.
Even if we're high tech, like I'm high tech, like I have an app and it has their name, but I still do roll call and make sure that they're checked in, even
Yeah,
though it kind of auto checks them in if they enter the club. But we can still, even if we're high tech, still like we want to be making those one-on-one, I call them touch points, connections.
yes.
That's such a great strategy. I like the
Yeah.
global and then the individual.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Or another way of doing this, if you have an iPad or an electronic mechanism to check people in, is
yeah.
if you get there 10 to 15 minutes early, stand at the door. And then
Yes.
as people are coming in, you have the option, you're checking them off on the list. Okay, they're here, you're doing the roll call, but you have a quick moment to individually be like, hey, how you feeling today? Anything I should know?
Yes.
And you acknowledge
Yes,
them one on
listeners,
one.
that's a takeaway. Put that in your pocket. Stand at the door. Standing at the door is one of the easiest ways to connect with every person in a really like organic way.
Yeah,
Great. And
yeah,
everyone, we should always, if we're not 15 minutes early, we're late. Fine.
exactly. Exactly.
I want to give a quick shout out before you move on, because I feel like you're going to point three.
Yes.
I know it's late there on the East Coast, but hold on. I'm still on point two with you. Hold on, simmer down. I want to give a little shout out to Yoga Fit. They're the first company that introduced me to the idea of inclusive cueing and language when I'm teaching. And it did revolutionize the way I cue, very similar with some of the strategies and techniques that you used. I really want the one that like really embedded itself into my practice is using the word maybe and maybe today. Like
Yes.
maybe we bring our knees, like let's say they're in a plank. Maybe we bring our knees down, maybe we leave them up. It's not like, you, the modification is, or if your
Yeah.
shoulders are tired, or it's just like maybe knees are up, maybe knees are down. And then I also like really saying like maybe today we add a little hop here. Maybe
Yeah.
we won't. Like maybe today, like tomorrow, maybe we will jump or we won't jump,
Yeah.
but just I don't know, really it's subtle, but it absolutely, when I started to make that subtle shift in the way I would cue, I felt like the the class became safer. It
Yes.
emotionally a safer space.
Yes. And I think you've hit on something important, Ellen, which is the subtle things are the ones that can have huge impacts and huge ripple effects, right? We think big equals big, sometimes small equals huge, right? The small changes in language. If
Yeah.
you're feeling it, maybe lift your arm. If you're not feeling it, awesome. And also,
Yeah.
let's not forget role modeling.
Yes.
If you, as the instructor, are always doing the most intense version of everything, you are communicating non-verbally that that's the default.
Yeah.
So I'll show lots of different options, but I purposefully don't always take the most intense option every exercise so that they can see
Yeah.
you're making it okay through your own example.
Exactly. You're right. It's
Okay.
almost like a contradiction if you're always going all out, but you're saying one thing. It's
Yeah.
almost, it takes the power, it's taking the power out of.
Exactly.
Permission.
So let's talk a little bit more about role modeling. We've talked about imagery, we've talked about language. This is a challenging one. Let's talk about how you show up as an instructor. What do I mean? I mean the clothes that you wear. I mean your grooming style. I mean how you talk about your personal workouts or your body or your nutrition or what you eat. I mean, do you talk about your own personal life? Do you mention things like your family, who's in your family? Do you have a family, right? Do you talk about vacations, travel, where you go, what you've been up to? Do you mention anything about politics as it relates to you, or share your own politics, your political views? Do you ever talk about religion? Do you say things that make it clear that you either celebrate certain holidays or don't, are a member of a certain religious group or not? I am absolutely 100% not here to tell you what to do in any of these regards. Do this, don't do that. I would never tell you that. But I think we can all afford to be a lot more intentional about these choices. And I think we should think about these choices of how we show up through the lens of, does this help to include more people? And will it help to make my class members, my clients, feel like they belong here? Or if I share this thing, or if I dress this way, or if I mention that I'm flying on a private jet next weekend, right? I'm not, to be very clear. Siri, am not. Is that going to make someone feel excluded? Because even with the best of intentions, this is the thing, we're all well-intentioned people, and all we want to do is deliver the best classes to all these people, and we want more people in our classes. But sometimes unconsciously we do things that signal to folks that, oh, this is not my space. She's not my person. She doesn't get me.
Yeah. It's
Again,
great,
it's
Siri.
subtle.
So great.
So I'll give you a concrete example.
Okay.
At one of the facilities that I teach, we have a dress code that says, well, it's always, dress appropriately, of course, but there's a specific provision that says cover your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Because while we might feel very comfortable bearing our stomach, I do it on social media all the time because I actually think sometimes it's a helpful visual.
Right.
This gym doesn't want to create an atmosphere where it's the instructor showing off her fabulously toned physique, which many of our students might not be able to relate to.
Right.
We're still fit and fabulous, but even with a little tank top covering our midriff, we can be fit and fabulous. I'll say when I teach virtual classes where, already it's through a screen, we want to make the visuals as clear as possible. I found that actually wearing really bright colors and bearing the midriff in between helps people to better see what's going on in my movements. And I've gotten that feedback from virtual participants. Wow, it was so helpful that you were in that hot pink outfit against a white wall because you really popped, and I could really see what was going on in those core movements.
It's true.
So again, use your judgment and be thoughtful. It doesn't mean that there's always a right and a wrong way.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, even wearing like bright lipstick, I feel like on virtual or even on a stage when you're far away, like at a conference, helps people like see your smile. Just the contrast, the contrast is what you're talking about. Something I was going to ask you about that.
Well, while you mentioned makeup, this is one of those things where we don't even probably think about it, right? I wear makeup to teach because I just do when I leave the house. Our students notice. I was just talking to some colleagues the other day, and members are coming up to us being like, so do you wear makeup when you do your own workouts? I mean, they're curious, right? We are up on stage in front of them for an hour. And so they have a lot of time to think about us and our choices. So there's things that we do on autopilot without thinking. There's a good chance that someone in that class is really overthinking that choice you just made. So, do what you will. But that's my third tip. Is be more intentional about how your choices about how you show up and how you present yourself might make other people feel either welcomed in or pushed out. Because when we're on the job, it's actually part of our job to be inviting more people in. And we should want to, because we should want packed classes. That's right?
I know what I was gonna say. It was one of my most listened to episodes was one of my first ones, and it was called "They Don't Need to Know."
Ellen, that's one of my favorites.
I know, I love it too. I feel like I feel like every instructor needs to listen to that episode. But it does touch on like, they don't need to know if you're injured. They don't need to know your political views. They don't need to know, they don't need to know who you voted for. Like,
Yeah.
there can be, it's okay to have a shroud of mystery around you as the fitness professional. And I think sometimes I know when I'm tempted to like, I feel like maybe if wanting to be more of like their friend, and then I compromise some of that, like, oh, maybe if they feel like we're friends, they'll like me more. My classes will grow more. But I really think, yes, there will be some friendships that form, of course, in class, no doubt about it. But, just being mindful of that. And I love that you even brought it down to vacation stuff. Like I
Yeah.
really thought
You
about
know, some people
that.
might not afford to go to Mexico on vacation, let alone Europe. And you're like, oh, I'm going to France next week. Yay.
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't mean that you
Right.
can't ever talk about your personal life, but it's more being more intentional.
And
We
being
just
more
had a big
aware,
national
being
election
more
recently
aware.
here in the
Right.
US. And
Right.
I had to really think about that because to your point about it being tempting, my temptation would have been to say something that week, like, wow, this is a big week. I know, we've got an election. But then I was like, you know what? If people are stressed about the election, they're stressed already. I want them to be my class to be a stress-free zone for them,
Yes.
for my class to be an
Yes.
escape
Yes.
from, frankly, whether it's election related or anything else stressful
Yes.
that's going on in their life. So I made a
Yes.
really conscious decision and I had to really train myself
Yes.
to not say a word about the world outside. And I just said, thank you for being here today. I'm so grateful for your presence. We're going to have 45 minutes just to get strong, to sweat, feel good, to work out the stresses. Let's go.
I was living a parallel existence with you day after election also, because I had a 45-minute class and handled it the same way. I was like, this is the political free zone. You're here for you. I like one of the ladies literally came in saying, I took the day off work because I needed a mental health holiday or something. I came here to work out.
Yeah.
Like, political free zone. This is for you.
Political free zone.
But let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. All right. So our job as instructors is to be mindful about how we show up ourselves. Point 4 that I want to share with you is I think our job is also to foster a more diverse next generation in the fitness industry. So that could be if you are in a studio, building the studio of the future, right? As you think about hiring people, cultivating instructors. I shared on our first episode how the reason I became an instructor is my group fitness director plucked me out of the front row of her class, freshman year of college, and said, hey, have you ever considered becoming an instructor, right? We have a lot of these types of opportunities to pluck people out of obscurity, so to speak, and to give them their start in the industry. Who do you mentor? Which of your participants get special attention from you? Which of your colleagues do you choose to give feedback to? If you have the opportunity to pick subs, who do you ask to sub for you? Because that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for the subbing instructor to gain more experience, to get in front of a new audience, to build their reputation, right? So no matter whether we have formal managerial responsibility or not, on a daily or weekly basis, we're doling out these opportunities for other people to build their profile, to build their career, to take things to the next level. And my question to you is, who are you channeling those opportunities to? You mentioned earlier, Ellen, about how there's so many middle-aged white women in the fitness industry. Yes, I can relate. Part of why that happens is because research shows that our networks tend to be overwhelmingly comprised of people like we are. Right. Whoever we are. And you see this even on a macro scale where people tend to cluster in neighborhoods, living alongside people who are of the same socioeconomic status or the same race or the same life circumstance, right? In most cities, there's neighborhoods where young parents with kids with strollers live. That's parents of young children clustering, living together. So this is just a very common human tendency. It's called homophily. It's our tendency to seek out people who are similar to us. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it just means that seeking out diversity is going against the grain. What comes naturally to us is seeking out similarity. If
Yes.
we want to diversify our circles, get different perspectives, different styles, different
Yes.
voices,
An
we have
opinion.
to work we have to work just a little bit harder to seek those perspectives out. So if you want to build a thriving program, studio, gym, online, video on demand platform that's going to continue to thrive in the future, that's going to continue to attract more and more members,
Mhm.
diversify in terms of your formats, in terms of your instructors, in terms of your marketing, everything. And we have to do that mindfully with intention because it's not going to happen naturally.
No, you reminded me of a couple of things in that, like that Jim Rohn thing about you are the culmination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And
Yeah.
whenever I hear that, I often am thinking about like affluence or socioeconomic status. Like, it's often used in that context. Like if you're trying to be like an entrepreneur and make a lot of money, like make sure you're, in a circle of people, da, da, da. But really, like, there's so much beauty and growth if we can just be intimately connected in our closest circle with people very unlike us in
Yeah.
how much money they make, in what they believe in how they were like worldviews, skin
Yeah.
color, all of it.
Yeah. And
All
it's
of
not easy. Research shows that when diverse perspectives come together in a team to work on a task, that team collectively actually makes better decisions
it. Huh?
because they consider more information, right? People are raising different considerations. Well, have you thought about this? What about that?
Right.
Instead of one person saying something in the beginning and everybody being like, yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like a great idea. Let's go. So
Right.
that's the mechanism. That's a reason whereby diverse groups make better decisions is because they actually surface more information for
Absolutely.
consideration
Yeah.
and they digest and deliberate on that information more. At the same time, though, they report that the process is harder and there's more friction because we all
Right.
know, right? If
Right.
everyone just agrees, yeah, 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 me too, me too.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's so
But
easy.
friction is like resistance. It builds us up.
Makes you
Sure.
stronger. It builds. I love, oh my gosh, Ellen, I'm going to steal that phrase. Yes, as fitness people, we get it. We
Yeah.
need resistance. We need a little bit of discomfort to push to the next level. And that's exactly how decision making works as well.
So good.
Which brings me to my fifth and final point for you, which is look for missing perspectives.
Ooh.
I hope that many of you are getting feedback. Maybe as an instructor at the end of class, you're asking your participants to provide feedback for you. Maybe if you run, again, your own online studio or brick and mortar, or you are the group fitness director in a big box gym, you're surveying your members, you're surveying your participants, you're surveying your instructors. This is all important. Please keep doing it. But if you're trying to build your business or your community, if you're trying to include more people in it, then you have to ask yourselves by talking to the people that are already there, who am I missing?
Oh.
Who am I not hearing from when I talk to the people who are already members at my gym, right?
Right.
Because if I'm trying to get more people to come in through the door, I need to find a way of reaching those people who are not yet members and asking, why aren't you coming? What's holding you back? What's your barrier? How could I change something that I'm doing to make it easier for you to join? And this is really, so I'm at the individual instructor level. I don't manage a club. I don't own a studio or gym, but I do this in my classes. And sometimes I have community members at Harvard University who know that I'm an instructor. They're like, oh, I should come to class. Oh, I wish I could. And I ask them immediately, I'm like, perfect. This is someone who's in my target market. They're eligible for membership, right? They could be coming, but they're not. I'm like, why aren't you? What's holding you back? And it's not what you think. You get the most insightful answers. Some of the toughest ones that I've heard are, well, I want to get in better shape so that I can be ready to come to your class.
Right.
Right? Wow, that's important information as an instructor because we need to do a better job now of communicating that our class is a welcome, open space, no matter what level you start at. Somehow this perception has been built up for people that there's like a entry threshold and barrier, right? That they can't just walk in as they are.
It's true. It's like I
So,
clean my house before the cleaning lady comes because
yes,
but they don't need to, they don't need that. They don't need to clean the house. They just need to show up, come as you are.
exactly.
messy,
Exactly.
out of shape,
So
discouraged.
that was, something that I found, but you might find a different thing when you talk to the people who aren't there. At conferences, it's awesome. You had this wonderful session. All these people came in, yay. But why did someone else not come? Why did
Yeah.
they choose a different
Ooh.
session in that time slot? Like getting that information from the so to speak missing people, so powerful. That
Wow.
is what's going to help you
Wow.
take your reach, your business, your community to the next level when you
Wow.
can figure out how to reach those people.
Wow.
So just to recap,
Okay.
we talked about minding your imagery because, as they say, seeing is believing.
Okay.
We talked about using inclusive and accessible language that frames things in terms of success rather than in terms of failure, or in terms of yes rather than no. We talked about reviewing how you personally showed up and how you can include more people, make more people feel welcomed through those intentional choices. We talked about fostering a diverse next generation and being really thoughtful about whom you channel opportunities to. If you have a newsletter, who are you highlighting in your newsletter? On social media, if you're ever doing shout outs, if you're ever tagging other people, who are you tagging? Do they all look like you? Could you tag someone new and different and unexpected? And then finally, we talked about looking for missing perspectives and talking to the people who aren't in the room to become even better at what you do.
Oh, Siri, that was dynamite. Like so much. There was so much in there. There's so much in there that I'm gonna apply and work on. And I
I'm
knew
thrilled.
scheduled this. I was like, ooh, this is an area that I'm looking for growth in. So, oh my goodness, you more than delivered. Thank you
Oh, thank you,
so
Ellen. We all are. And friends, I would love to hear which one of these tips resonated with you. So if you're, on YouTube, comment on the video or send us a message on social
yeah.
media. I really would love to hear which one of these tips you put into practice yourself. I hope at least one, if not more, but pick at least one and start doing it tomorrow.
Yeah. For me, it's 4 and 5. 4 and 5 are gonna be my like
Yes.
big areas of focus. Um,
Love that.
so okay. Well, it is time for I mean, I do want to get your confession. And then I also just I wanted to get information about, I pre-ordered the book, but I did it like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or something on Amazon. So it's
Yes.
just going to show up at my doorstep. Boom.
Yes, you can pre-order the book through makeworkfair.com. I think, Ellen, you're putting all the
I am.
Insta links and the websites and the LinkedIns and things in the show notes. On Instagram, I share fitness content. On LinkedIn, I share academic research content. So you're welcome to connect with me on either. I would love to connect with you on either or both. And yes, you can pre-order the book anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It'll come out on January 28th. So if you pre-order now, that's when it's going to show up at your door, the day of publication.
Amazing.
My confession, and I did confess this to you in person, Ellen, over the summer when I last saw you. I love this podcast so much. I have listened to every single episode. I listen to them at 1.8 speed. This is my secret hack. I highly recommend it, friends. 2.0 speed, too much. 1.5 could still be faster. 1.8 is the perfect middle ground. It's efficient, but you still catch every word. And I usually do it either when I'm outside walking or when I'm doing my long runs on the treadmill. And it gets me through. If I can do my first 30 minutes of a 60-minute run listening to my podcast, listening to your podcast, the second 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, we'll get home. We'll roll on through. But 1.8 speed, friends, I highly recommend it.
That's my favorite confession ever. That I listen to everyone. We just celebrated 1 year. We just
It's
celebrated.
incredible. Congratulations, Ellen.
Never
And I'm
miss.
so happy you're continuing.
Me too. Well, I had to. I had booked you, and I have other people booked, and I intended to. I'm one of those people that like if I commit, I am like all in 100%. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna let. It's just the way I'm wired. So I didn't want to overcommit, and I knew that if I wanted this podcast to grow and build, I needed to be consistent. So I just set out as a goal of doing, one a week every Monday for a year and then kind of deciding. So I'm going to just keep it going. But I just maybe can let my hair down a little. So if I happen to ever miss a Monday, but I don't plan to.
I don't see you missing a Monday.
No, I don't either.
Also, friends, in case you haven't listened to every single episode like me, and if you want inspiration, Ellen already mentioned one of my favorite episodes, which is They Don't Need to Know. I think that's from the very beginning, like November 2023.
Yes.
Another couple that I love, in August, you did one about great class intros. My goodness. I share it with all the new instructors that I talk to. I'm like, boom, listen to this and craft your intro accordingly. Another one that I loved was in July, you did an episode about summer doldrums and how to keep your classes packed.
With Mary.
We are in the middle of end of semester doldrums right now because we're on the academic calendar. I mean, this is timeless advice that I feel like applies any time of the year. There was also another one that you did in last March about how to build class attendance. Yes. And the tips in those episodes, just so applicable, so practical. Anyone can put them to use. I learned so many great ideas. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for highlighting those actually are some of the very, very, very best episodes, I feel like, that you mentioned. But you know what I've learned? That how I've learned this, because I'm new. I mean, I've been doing a year, but I was new to podcasting, just like, you're new to being an author. I was like new to podcasting. One thing I learned, like not right away, is that how I title the episode really matters. And I listen to podcasts myself too. So I realized, like, when I go to a podcast show, I noticed that that's what I do. Like if some podcasts, I listen to every single episode, so it's a moot point. But if it's some podcasts, I just listen to intermittently if I have time or whatever. But what I do on those is I'm like, I haven't listened to this one for a couple months, and I'll like shop the title. And so I realized in retrospect that is so important, because that's how people decide which ones they might want to listen to. And it hasn't always matched. Like some of the most incredible podcasts the show has done, maybe the title wouldn't draw someone in naturally, but the content is good. So scour them all. There's so many good ones in there. Thank you.
Yes.
For saying that. And I wonder how many people besides you have listened to every single one. I'm so curious.
Let us know. Let Ellen know if you're a part of the every single episode club.
Yeah, let me know.
I feel like, Ellen, you should do a poll, for example, to honor your 1 year, being like, hey, everyone, what's been your favorite episode? We're a year in.
I should. I love that you just did the recap, because I actually thought like I should recap some of and you just kind of did it for me. So yeah.
That could be a future episode right there.
Let us know.
A little look back.
Most people listen on Apple, Spotify, most people Apple, and fewer actually watch on YouTube. But if you ever want to watch these episodes, they are on YouTube. And every once in a while, one of them, like the Build Your Class Attendance, goes crazy. Lots of people. But the one about how to do a class intro, that is so important. And after I did that episode, I was like, that was such good stuff. I'm going to add that to my certification course. So I actually put the little kind of the bullet points from that in our training day now, because it's just such a good fundamental skill that sometimes
I love that.
Forget to ever hone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also, even as experienced instructors, I think it's extra important, because in the beginning, when we're new, we pay so much attention to everything because we're new. But when we get more seasoned, we start to do more things on autopilot. Yes. Oh yeah, this is what I always say at the beginning of class, right?
Exactly.
That's when we get into a rut. That's when things start getting stale. And that's where you got to catch yourself and say, oh, let me refresh. Let me start going to other people, either listen to the podcast episode, which is brilliant. Start going to other people's classes. Yes. Notice how they do their intros. Rewrite yours, tweak yours. Because it is so important. Like there's always a way to do it better.
I know. And I know we're like on a tangent and I'm trying to wrap here, but I honestly think those of us that are like good instructors, which is probably everyone listening, like, you know what I mean? Those of you, we're the ones that like tend to get apathetic. Like me too. Like, we do lose a little perspective and kind of like that whole going through the motions thing. So it's just really, it's hard to be self-aware at times. It's hard to get outside of your own self and be yourself. But yeah, taking classes and so many things. Listening to this podcast.
Listening to podcasts. It's a form of continuing education right here. These podcasts.
Really, that was my behind it. So anyway, I didn't mean to like plug the
nailed it, my friend.
I meant to plug the book. So in the show notes, we're going to have links to everything. Make sure you follow. Honestly, if you're listening and you're driving somewhere right now, or you're in your headphones and your phone somewhere else, and you can't go to the show notes, if you just follow Siri on, like she said, Instagram or LinkedIn. I didn't know that you kind of deliver slightly different content on both, but
Yes.
Instagram, like you'll see about her book, and she's one to follow. She's definitely one that will add value, light, and life, and love, and positivity into your social media scroll. So
thank you, Ellen.
Same
goes for you.
And if you ever comment, she's gonna take the time to respond. So yeah. Whereas from me, you just might get like a heart hands emoji. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to get better.
It works either way.
Yeah. But
we love you either way.
I love you too. Where am I going to see you this year? Around? We don't know.
In 2025, let's see. I'm going to be at SCW Mania DC.
Okay.
I'm going to be at Fitness Fest in Arizona in April. I will be at IDEA, new location, Sacramento, in July. I'm also part of a new home workout app that's launching in January called We Gym. So from anywhere, if you want to work out with me from home, you can work out with me on the We Gym app. That's new and exciting.
Did you put that in our notes that I'm going to share?
I will send it to you.
Okay, that's so exciting. I want to hear more about that later offline.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless we do a third podcast. So I'm glad you mentioned IDEA, because I forgot when I introduced you to say that you were the IDEA Trailblazer of the Year.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah, such an honor,
it's a huge honor. Yes.
Accomplishment. Like that's just like, whew. So amazing. So I will see you in Sacramento. I am doing less of the Wild Tour because, I don't know, you probably don't know this, but I'm doing my own conference. Boom. I know. I'm taking it to
everybody.
I'm doing a conference like here in Eugene, and I'm going for it. Like I'm going all out. It's called the Con, which is the confidence conference, because it's about how to become a more confident instructor. I'm so excited.
Ellen, can I please come? When is Con? Yes. I want to be there.
June 6th, 7th, and 8th, 2025.
Amazing.
I'm going to send you all the information, and I don't know. I'm going for it. So it's
Ellen, that's so exciting.
But I'll be
double congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. So anyway, but I will definitely see you at IDEA and, other places, I'm sure.
And online.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. And listeners, thank you so much. Please share the show. And we appreciate your time and that you carved out this hour of your day to listen to the two of us. It means a lot to us.
Thank you so much for listening. And Ellen, thanks for having me. So much fun as always.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining in on the Confessions of a Group X Instructor podcast. If you're interested in becoming a warrior instructor, go to warriorinstructors.com. But if you want more and found this episode amazing, please give us a rating. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. So remember, be brave, be bold, be blessed. And above all, listen, learn, love.